Casey from Michigan, hello. Welcome. Steve Appleton. Dan from Southern Utah, welcome. Gary, San Antonio, Texas, welcome. Larry from Atlanta. JP from Calgary, Canada, welcome. JP, thank you so much for coming in. Mike from Virginia. Dis from Nevada, we'd love to know your first and last name, Dis, thank you. And also Default from Omaha, please, your first and last name. So we wanted to acknowledge you guys. Rex from Alabama. Richard Dorsey, hello. Hello, Rick from Austin. It's nice to have you here. John Wozniak from Oregon, hello. Thank you very much, guys, for showing up. We really appreciate your presence. We wanted to say hello and thank you as well to all our customers and followers that are streaming with us live, both on our Facebook and YouTube channel. Thank you for always showing up and tuning in with us. Again, this is the place where we share our knowledge, ask questions, and get tips and tricks all about the lapidary art. And today is the second part of our series for Flint Knapping Essentials. We have a very special guest tonight. He owns Chris Rock's Rock Shop in Ohio. He's been doing lapidary since 1996, which started as a hobby and he turned it into a business. No other than Christopher Stricklett. Thank you so much. And for our Q&A later, you can raise your hand if you have any questions by going into our reaction icon at the bottom of your Zoom and click raise hand, or you can also post your questions via chat. For sure, tonight will gonna be another interactive and informative session for everyone. So get ready as we kick off our 9th live webinar with our intro video.
Hey, everybody. So how many people were here from last week? Say yes in the chat. Say yes in the chat if you were here last week. Yeah, Lizelle, I know you were here last week. All right, so we're going to be getting into more detail, and we've got a couple of really good videos that show you more detail on the knapping process. So I think we'll start off with a video that Chris is actually making a point and showing some of the technique. And certainly if you guys have any questions, you got Chris here, you can pick his brain as much as possible and help you advance your knowledge of knapping. Oh, and I see Gary's request. Yeah, Gary, I talked to the team this morning about putting the Zoom link on the Facebook page. All right, let's play video 1.
All right, I got a piece of it's rainbow obsidian from Glass Buttes. And try to get this thing down. This is what I'm doing is abrading it to make the edges stronger. You can see the white edge right there. When I abrade it, it makes it a little bit stronger so that when I strike it, it doesn't just shatter. Ultimately, this is called percussion knapping, and this is a slab. It's about 7/16 thick. Principle behind this, really, the science behind this is that when I strike the edge, it's going to break off in a conchoidal fracture that comes off basically to match this drawing. Can you focus in on that drawing? This is called a conchoidal fracture. So when I strike the rock, it's going to make a cone. So when I strike the cone, the flake is going to run down this angle. And so, all right. So when I strike this right here, it's going to be the same as that, like a BB hitting the glass. And when I strike that, you'll see a cone right there. And you can see this is called the bulb of percussion. It's round. It's shaped just like that drawing where I hit. Can you see the shape of that? So it's called a bulb of percussion. Now the thing about the bulb of percussion is that it follows ridges. So every time you hit, there's a ridge. There's a ridge. So the flakes will travel down ridges. Right now I'm just going to go ahead and just do a little bit of reduction, and my whole idea is to shape it and get this slabbing off. And I'm going to just flip top to bottom and work my way around and get this slabbing off. I'm going to use this abrader to, it's not an abrader, I'm going to use this pick, I guess, crunch off. What I'm trying to do is I got some slabbing right here to remove. What I'm going to do is I'll use this copper, and by grinding it off just like this, I'm moving the edge from this side up by crunching it off. Alright, then I'm going to just go ahead and I'll make it strong. Now the edge is way more to this side of the center line, and here I'm on this side of the center line, so this is going to need flakes to come off this way. But over here I'm on this side of the center line, so here I'm going to be able to get this slabbing right here, here, try to get this slabbing off. I'll be able to get one flake here, but these other flakes come toward this high spot right here. So what I'm going to do is pop a couple flakes off with my Ishii stick. This is an Ishii stick. Basically Delron. I like to make it in kind of a screwdriver shape to keep the edges square. Other guys put a point, beat it and make a point on it. I like to have a screwdriver because I figure I got 2 points. 2 points. I got two things I could kind of use up. So, and then what I have here is my blade. By looking at it, you can see some flakes have to go to the right, and some flakes have to go to the left. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, and I abrade it. That flake's got to come off this way using my Ishii stick. Can almost see the whiteness there. That's called a delta. It's kind of shaped like a letter D. It's a delta. Usually there's a ridge attached. I use my leg muscles and I pull off the flake. You can actually aim. You're using your leg muscles, and so you can actually aim by changing the angle like this. You can make a short flake or a long flake, short flake or a long flake. I'm going to take a couple little. I just need to take and nibble a little, so I'm going to just run a couple short flakes. Then you can see this is going way that way, so I'm going to flip it. This is where I'm at with it. I've got the basic shape of it. I thought I would just try to do the notches now before I do any finish work, in case I have any trouble with the notches. Is use my leg muscles to pop the notches in. See, pops out a conchoidal fracture. It's the same as when you strike the edge, pops out a Hertzian cone right there. So then after you pop that cone out, you just kind of square it off a little bit, and then you flip it over and you pop one out the other side the same. Whoops. just like that. You can always see the shape of the cone. It's perfectly round. So I'm going to go ahead and finish notching this, and then I'll get back to you. All right, well, I just got done notching the arrowhead. Then I did some finish edge work. Turned out pretty nice. I'm excited to see it out in the sunlight and see how it looks with a little bit of sun shining on it. So it is rainbow obsidian. So that's about it. Thank you.
All right. So I see we have one question, which is from Larry. And we talked about this a little last week, but his question is, rather than starting with a big slab like you did, can you trim it down to shape before starting to trim it away?
Yeah, a lot of times that is exactly what we do. Is you can either just have a thin slab, or you can actually have a completely flake over grind it, completely grind it, and just run one single pass of flakes over it. And
hey Chris, do you have a flake over grind preform that you can show?
I had a guy come and buy the one that I had. The one that I had. I'll get it. I think I do have one somewhere here. I had a guy.
Yeah, well, we did show it, Larry. We did show that also in last week's webinar, so you can look at that up on the YouTube channel. So, what other questions you guys have for Chris? You have his full attention in the moment, and he's here to be able to help you and teach you whatever you want to learn about flint knapping. I saw another question about wanting to see a close-up of the tools.
Okay. This is that's my issue stick. I always grind it to a screwdriver shape.
Now, how long is that? How long is that stick?
You know, people, this is probably 22. They go from 20 to 24, and you really kind of fit it to your body length and stuff. I like a little bit longer one because it stores so much energy, and you can release the flakes just at will. You know, you could just aim them and send them right where you want. That's the just a simple pick, and I use it for removing material, or you could do all kind of pressure work with this. I shape it as a screwdriver. That's the pick that I use for my notching.
So it's got a smaller point in it.
Yeah, and the thinner you can make that, the better. And it's hardened by annealing, by beating on it with a hammer and annealing it. It gets it harder, and that helps it grab better. I have this is it's probably 2 inches long and 1 inch round. It's just copper.
It's a solid copper.
Solid copper. And then I have one that's just longer. You can see it's beginning to mushroom a little. But it's just a longer one. This one will,
yeah.
This will really move a lot more material. But it
because of the weight of it.
Yeah, it could tear up your elbow though. And then, like on my hand pads, I just put these on my fingers like this, and then I have a leather or a rubber pad to further protect my hands.
Well, that rubber also makes it a little easier to grab a hold of because it's thicker. right?
Yeah, I can hold the piece like this. And then what happens is the flake that I run will travel under in this channel. So I pop a flake and it's going to be able to travel. It's kind of hollowed out here.
Ah, so it doesn't affect the chipping process by having that gap there.
Right. And then what happens is you pop your flake off and your tool can travel past and carry through, and your flakes, you can aim them with the issue stick. And then that's just basic hand protection.
All right.
So,
yeah. And Gary asked, is the metal that you use in those tools always copper?
Yeah, you like copper because it's malleable and it steels too hard and it won't grab, because copper's soft and it's malleable. It'll grab hold of it. It'll grab hold of the edge of the stone. Some people will use brass, but it's a little too hard. But there are people that'll use something like if it had a steel nail, say, in it, you could hit it and pop a flake in a notch with a little steel pin or something. It's I really haven't mastered that, but some guys are getting some real fine notches with a steel nail smashed down, but they're smacking it with a secondary percussor.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what other questions we have. We got a video on heat treatment coming up in a little bit. The materials for the tools, the two plastics, I believe the white is nylon and the black is Delrin. It's basically just a plastic that's strong, that's good for making the handle.
Yep.
And then JP, I saw you had a question here about protection equipment. Basically, Chris just showed some of that. The leather pads are probably the most important thing. That's like an 1/8 inch thick leather, isn't it? And you got 2 of those.
I just double them. You know,
Yeah.
John, I gotta mention though that even more than any of this kind of padding, safety glasses, and of course the silica dust. We got to be real cautious of the silica dust with flint knapping. It's even worse than with the saws, because at least it's wet and with oil. So we have to protect ourselves from breathing the silica dust more than anything. That's probably the biggest hazard of this flint knapping.
Well, lapidary in general, if you're dry grinding.
Yep.
All right, any other questions? And if not, we'll start the next video.
We have other question here, John, from
All right.
Mark LaPlante. I found a hammer stone at Flint, Ohio. How
Yeah.
would that be used?
Boy, it would just be handheld, just like I would hold this, and he would just do the same thing, just strike the edge with it, just like that. I find hammer stones at Flint Ridge every time I go digging there. It's so fun. The Indians left them there. I found a hammer stone that was the same size as a softball. And I was digging in the clay. You can tell where nobody's been for thousands of years because it's yellow clay. And I was digging away, and all of a sudden I see a piece of dirt fall away, and it had a shape just like this, real round. And I'm like, what the heck? Sure as heck, sitting there right on the ledge in situ was a hammer stone, right where primitive man left that thing. Could have been 5,000 years ago. I don't know. And it was right
That's
where
awesome.
he left it. How fun is that? So Roy's had them roll out where they left a whole pile of them. And when he was in there with his backhoe, all of a sudden, boom, they just rolled right out, a pile of them, right where the Indians left them, because they weren't going to haul them out of there.
Yeah, drag them there, drag them back.
Right.
All right.
We also have John Zempias raising his hand. He got some questions. Would you like to?
Sure.
All right.
Hi, John.
Unmuted. Okay. How thick was that slab you started with? Because I have a friend who slabs stuff. How thick of a slab do you want to start with?
If I'm gonna beat on it by hand with this, the way I did in that demo, the thinnest I probably would go is about 3/8. Say 1/2 inch to 3/8. It would be real good.
Okay.
So, but if you're gonna do any kind of just thin slabs and only use a pressure flaker, then they're 1/4 to 5/16 only.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, John, for your question. I think we can proceed to the next video.
All right.
Sometimes the rocks that I want to clamp in my machines are ill-shaped or just not very clampable. And so I like to use my PT10 to maybe square off the end and get a better grip, a safer grip. I've got a beautiful water flow. There it is. Nice square end that I can clamp in my machine better and safer. All right. And I turn off my water up here. That shuts down my pump. Yeah, this is my PT8, I guess it's called. I put it up, build it into the countertop. But I use it for cutting to start getting the rough shape. So I might use this to simply cut that lobe off of there. And I can get a potential shape of what I'm looking for, and I'll rough shape it on this machine.
All right. That's good.
Yeah, that's how you get ready for all those the guys. A lot of the guys just use something like their Ishii or just pressure, and they're running one set of flakes across those slabs, and then they just do the edge work and notch it and they're done. So they like those pre-shaped slabs, those slices really well.
So if people are wanting to get slabs from you, Chris, what's the best way? Do you have like a website, or do you just do it through your Facebook, or how do you like people to contact you?
Yeah, I'm so far I've always had most of my people from Facebook, other than all my rock shows that I do. I do a lot of rock shows, so but I'm getting to the point now where I really need to gonna have to hire some people.
That's great. That's great.
Yep. Yeah, I can't keep up now because I need all the saws running all the time, and I can't run the saws if I'm packaging. I can't run the saws if I'm grinding or cleaning saws. I need help.
Yeah, well, that's called growth. So
good.
we did have a question earlier about heat treating. So why don't you talk, I know we talked about this last week a little bit, but talk a little bit for the people who might not have been here last week, talk a little bit about why and what kind of materials that you would typically need to heat treat. And then we'll show the video on how you do that.
Yeah, the thing is that there's some materials just don't work very well raw. The Indians or primitive man would a lot of times leave the rock in the ground, because what would happen is all the pores, the microscopic pores of the rock would be hydrated and filled with water still. So when you strike the rock, you're going to get a nice flake a lot of time while the rock is hydrated. Well, once you take the rock out of the ground, it starts getting what I call dry or crispy. They dry out and the rock won't work as well. Primitive man found out that if you heat treated the rock, it gives it a shelf life for one thing. You're not going to have to keep it hydrated. It increases the workability because it changes it on a molecular level, and it kind of changes it similar to tempering steel. And the other true benefit of it is by heat treating, it increases the workability, and but it also a lot of times gets the color to pop. And when you can get that color to pop, especially on some rocks like Flint Ridge, when that color pops, it just becomes way more beautiful. But some rocks, some types of cherts and things don't work very well, would be destroyed if you heat treat them. Things like Coshocton in Ohio, you don't really need to heat treat that. Carter Cave that comes from Kentucky, that does not need heat treated. Indiana hornstone does not need any heat treating, and it works just as beautiful forever. It's just beautiful. But other ones like Flint Ridge needs heating. Agates need heat treating. Jaspers, most of them need heat treating. Fossilized coral or petrified woods, they almost all would need heat treating. Although petrified wood up in North Dakota, it's called Rainy Butte, that does not need heat. So it's pretty cool. I think primitive man figured out that some of these rocks work a lot nicer after they were heat treated.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go ahead and play that heat treat video, Joanna.
People are wondering, why do I have to heat treat the rock? And the truth is that one of the main reasons I'm going to heat treat it is because it does two things for me. It increases the workability, which makes it easier to nap and easier to work. And also one of the real benefits for me is that it's gonna make the colors jump, and I'm gonna get a way nicer color. So I'm just gonna load it all. I'm gonna load it all in the kiln, and then some of them aren't gonna be able to take the heat. I know that I was in some cap rock. Cap rock has a higher silica level. It doesn't really even almost need any heat. Look at that. Yeah, this rock definitely needs heat, but very good rock, really good rock. And, yeah, the cap rock doesn't need much, if any, heat. If you heat it most of the time, it just explodes, or it's just not good. But all this rock is not really that high a quality, to be honest. It will be once I heat treat it though. Okay, yeah. Idle. 35 degrees out here.
Woo!
So basically, when you're heat treating, you load it in your kiln, and you have a program so it brings it up in temperature very slowly, and then
Yeah.
holds at a temperature and then cools down very slowly, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you that I like to hold it around 210 or below boiling, like just to dry out the rock for about 4 hours. But then I ramp up at 15 degrees an hour to my target temperature, and I'll usually hold at my target for 8 hours. But every some of the target temperatures really vary a lot between the types of rocks.
What's
Some of
the
them
range? What's the
they're
range?
like, I would say about from 350 to maybe say 700. Some of the Novaculite can take a lot of heat. Most of them are perfect at right around 550. So, but things like Flint River that comes from Albany, Georgia, that only needs like 375. Works out pretty nice and gets a little bit more reds in it. And there's different quality of rocks. So one, even of the same types, this one needs more heat than this one. So
Right.
if you start with your lower target temperature, sample them all, this one needed a little more heat, put it in the next batch, go another 25 degrees, and you won't mess up so much rock that way.
He's talking Fahrenheit, Gary.
Yeah.
So Mark was asking if Imperial Jasper needs heat treating.
I would heat it.
Yeah.
I keep on thinking that it's been a while, but 475 probably.
Yeah, it
So,
makes nice points too.
oh my gosh, very nice. Yeah.
So how about Mookite? How much heat does Mookite require?
You know, the original guy that gave me the recipe for Mookite, he told us to put it in a kiln, run it up to 375 and shut the thing off and it's done. And that isn't really, I don't think that that's really true, but I've heated it up to like 475, 480. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the same thing. You have high quality, you have lesser quality. You really have to look at the silica level. And the higher the silica level, the less heat. Simple as that. Same with coral and everything.
So Don just asked if you ever use Mozarkite.
Not that I was aware of. I've heard of it though. Yeah.
And then I saw an earlier question, how do you identify flint?
Well, flint comes from Europe. It's formed in chalk beds. And there is no flint in the United States at all. Because chert is what we have in the United States, and it's formed in with limestone. So over there in Europe, they have chalk beds there, and that's where the real Danish flint comes from, and that. So,
And that stuff was kind of like dark gray and almost translucent, if I remember correctly.
absolutely, really high quality stuff. You might find some over there in Boston off the coast because they probably were using it for ballast on the ships from Europe, and then when they threw it out when they got here in the bay, loaded up their cargo and headed back. So
Well, you know, I went to Denmark in about 1975 or 76, and I went to where my uncle grew up and met his mom actually. And he had a beach that he loved to go play on that was close to her house. We went out on that beach and there were all these round white on the outside from being in a chalk bed, flint nodules. And of course, we were wanting to see what was in them. So we're tossing them around. And those things would bounce because they're so hard. They would bounce and go bouncing down over all the rocks on the beach before it would break. But I have some of that. I have some of that from that trip still.
That's probably super high quality rock right there.
Yeah, it was almost translucent when it would chip.
You know, some people think that if you strike the everybody calls them flint, but everybody thinks if you strike it against steel and you get a spark that means it's flint, you know, but really coral will spark and all shirts will spark, jasper sparks, of course, real flint sparks. The whole action of making the spark is that you shaved off a thin piece of steel so thin that it made that it sparked it, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So do we have any other questions?
Nope, we're all good. We're all answered. Thank you, John.
All right. Well, anything else we want to cover here, Chris, that might be helpful for people?
I don't know. I like being the kind of guy that can take the rock all the way from the flint digging site. And like I went to Nethers, you know, I got in the hole, I dug out the rock, brought it home, you know, I tested it there. I brought it home and I put it in my kiln, heat treated it, and I turned around and beat that thing all the way out, you know, into a usable tool or usable blade. And to me that it's just more rewarding than just sitting with my pressure flaker and peeling off slabs. It's just, you know, I got dirty, I got in there, I dug it out and everything. And
that's great. That's great. I see that we got John has a question for us.
Hold on here. Okay, yeah, I'm live. Okay. Thank you for your time in doing this. Now, I just heard that there is no flint in Flint Ridge, Ohio, that you're calling it chert. Does that mean it needs to be heat treated?
Yeah.
Flint Ridge chert needs to be heat treated. You know, the formation that you find Flint Ridge chert is called the Vanport formation. That, you know how when we were in school, you'd have all the layers of the earth and you'd draw the section drawing. That layer is called the Vanport formation.
So that chert all needs to be heat treated.
Well, I would not go as far as to say all of it, because as the flint was forming on the very top layers, the highest silica level forms at the top. I call them bubbles, but they're really, they're heads. The highest silica level is at the top of them. And you really call it cap rock. And that is such high silica level that it really does not need heating. You actually will probably destroy it if you heat it.
Thank you.
So, but most of generally the other stuff, it needs about 550. Yep.
So Larry asked a question. Do you heat treat the slab, then slab, or slab, then heat treat?
One of the things, if you heat treat first, your rock is going to cut easier than the raw rock. So I know that Roy Miller heat treats his rocks whole and then slabs them. Some rocks some rocks don't like to be heated whole. Like a New Mexico jasper does not like to be heated whole. And what you have is a lot of the New Mexico jasper are conglomerated rocks. There's like, well, you know what a conglomerate, there's lots of different rocks, but this one is next to this one, and it's changing size at a different rate than this
expansion
one.
rate, they're different.
And all of a sudden now you got a fracture or a problem in between them. So some rocks don't take well. Now what you could do is move the temperature way slower. Just slow it down and then you'd be all right. But the other thing is that if you pre-slab that rock that couldn't take the heat as a rock, you pre-slab it, now you can heat it. It'll take it. You can move it faster. You can do almost anything once it's slabbed. My issue with it is I have to take special crazy care to clean them and degrease them, because that grease will, the cutting, even cool oil or whatever you guys use, you have to get all that oil off the rock or it'll darken it, it'll burn it. So as long as you use a degreaser to clean your rock, it would be way better to heat treat first, but you can't do it all the time. So
yeah, so we have a couple questions from people asking, how do you know if a stone needs to be heat treated, particularly if you don't know where it's from?
You know, once you make try to make one single flake with it, and you'll instantly know whether it needs heat or not. But that doesn't mean that heat treating will make it better. But most of the time, heat treating will make the rock better if you figure out the correct recipe to use to heat it. So, and you usually have to, like, I'll stick something that I don't know what the recipe is in with something else I'm already heating and find out what happened to it. So if I can put it in, put it in with my Flint Ridge, and it went to my Flint Ridge recipe and it came out and it's great, like Indian paint jasper. I put a piece in with my Flint Ridge, took the 550, took it out the other day, and I'm like, God, this thing's perfect. So now I don't have to figure out a recipe or risk a whole batch with me not knowing what I'm doing. So, so next time, if I'm not sure, I'll put something in with the 475 batch and see how it works. Well, it needed more heat. Okay. And that's how you test it without ruining it all.
So we have another question around the grinding your blanks. What size grit do you use? And how smooth does that surface need to be before you start chipping the point?
Yeah, no, I can use my coarsest. I think Lizelle set me up with 60 grit, the centered. I have 60 grit centered. Two of I butt them together. And
you can just grind straight away with that and then start chipping the point.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, awesome. You're not gonna have any issue. Leave a little bit of a ridge down the center of your blank. I didn't leave a good ridge down the center of this. And this is the one I started, but I snapped it, see? I'm not real good at flake over grinds, but I was on my way.
So Steve from Wisconsin is asking, is there any material up there that he can use for knapping? Up in northern
Wisconsin is silicified sandstone. It's called Hickston.
How do you spell that?
It's called Hickston. I think it's Hixton.
All right.
It's silicified sandstone is what it is. Yeah. highly prized. Highly prized.
There you go. Well, Steve's got something to look for now.
Yes.
And
This
Harley
solicitor-
Todd says, I fog FOG nap. And when I trim the slabs, I get many small chips. Do I sharpen the blade? Still not. I do sharpen the blade. Still not what I wanted, but I work with them. Do you understand his question?
I think so. He's probably having some chipping on the edge, which does make it hard. You know, I believe that, you know, if you're going to do flake over grinds, I bet you those soft wheels you guys sell would be a better way probably to keep the edges from chipping. But I didn't have any chipping with that centered wheel. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the exact answer is. I was having some chipping when I was making the slabs, the 1/4 inch and 5/16 slabs on the end. But I just went over to my wet belt sander and just went shh, done. I fixed it with my wet belt sander because those guys that do those, they want square edges, no little chips. So my one blade was chipping it. So I just went over to my wet belt sander and I just went, shh, done, fixed it. That's
Nice.
pretty cool. Mm.
So what do you use for degreasing slabs if you slice it and then heat treat?
It's called greased lightning.
Greased lightning. It sounds powerful. Where do you
It
get
is.
that? Anyway?
At Home Depot.
All right.
Yeah.
So Larry's asking, what nappable material in Georgia?
There's Georgia Jasper. That's toward the east side, but I can't tell you where. You might look at a geology of Georgia book, but in Albany, Georgia is Flint River. It's called Flint River is called Coastal Plains, and you just go in the Flint River, right under. It's right underneath Albany University in Georgia. There's a bridge right there. And you just park in the there's a guy that makes shoes there, fixes shoes, and he lets us park there, and you just go all the way down, get right in the river, and you can get the Flint River. I'll show you what it looks like. It's called Coastal Plains. Goes all the way from Albany, Georgia, all the way down through Dothan, Alabama. So it comes in big, it's ocean floor. Sometimes you'll find fossils in it, seashells. This does not need heat, but the more caramely doesn't need heat, but sometimes guys like to put a real light heat on it, like 375, 425, and it just makes it a little bit easier to work. But usually this real caramely stuff works beautiful raw, so you don't really need to heat it. That's good rock. That's some of the best rock in Georgia.
So Everett was asking, he'd watched some guys at Daniel Boone in Kentucky use deer antler. Is that just show or done often?
Yeah, it's done often. Those guys are just as good with antler as I could be with a hammerstone or copper or my copper tools. They absolutely just as good of a tool, just as good in every way. You just use them. They grab the edges better. You might you might have to set up your platform a little better where you're going to strike, set it up, maybe isolate it more so you never miss, or make sure it's a certain strength so that your flakes release. So yeah, no, that's not just show. That those guys are good that can do that.
Yeah,
Better than
that's
me.
a tried and true method from what, say, thousands of years ago?
Thousands and thousands. Oh, 14,000 in on this continent up here.
Yeah. So couple more questions on material locations. San Joaquin in California or Nevada?
What was that again?
San Joaquin Valley in California.
And what has he got there? Some kind of nice
Well, he's
shirt?
looking for nappable materials.
I'm not sure. Well, of course, along the whole West Coast, everywhere is every kind of obsidian that you can think of. So, but
well, and there's a lot of good jaspers on the beaches there in Southern California too.
Yeah, and I heard of jaspers in Oregon and all along down through there. Yeah.
And have you ever napped Indian blanket?
No, I got Indian paint jasper.
Yeah, Indian blanket's kind of like an opalite. That I know that comes out of Nevada, I'm pretty sure. But for anybody who doesn't have good material or you can't find it, this guy right here, Chris, he can hook you up.
And I got, without even moving, I got 20 types right within just feet of me, at least. Probably 30 types. Very fun.
All right.
John,
Well, we got any other questions on any of the other channels?
yes. Brass Dress is asking if grease lighting is better than ZEP 501.
I think most all ZEP products are amazing. I've never seen a ZEP product that wasn't amazing. So I can't speak for that particular product, but I know their product line. So you know what the truth is? Degrease your rock with what you can and heat a batch and see what happens. You know, that little bit of burn doesn't ruin the rocks. It doesn't really penetrate. So once you actually take your first set of flakes, it's all gone. So it's not like the burn hurts anything, except if you're trying to sell it and it looks burned, it's not pretty. People like pretty. So that's one of the main reasons I don't want to burn my rock. Yeah. Just because of the pretty factor. It doesn't do any damage to it.
Okay, and can they degrease with Simple Green? Is that another brand of degreasing?
Yeah,
that would probably work. Yeah.
The best thing about Simple Green is it's not going to hurt the environment whatsoever. So I bet it would work. Yeah, I have it here in my shop. So.
Right. And I'm not sure if we handled this earlier. So Flint is more dense than chert?
No, I would say that they're almost, to me, I would consider them nearly identical as far as the density of it.
All right. How much of the edge do you lose doing grind overs? Like average? That's a question from Gary.
Yeah.
What was the, how, reword that?
When you're napping a grind over, how much of the edge do you lose? I think Gary, are you talking about like how much size do you lose on the piece? Overall size.
Yeah.
So if you start out with a grind over that's an inch wide, how wide will your point be when you're done?
I don't think you'll lose much more than an 1/8 in width with it, because you're really not going to lose anything. You're hooking right on the edge, and you really lose very little. After I run the second set of flakes, all I'm going to be doing is picking just picking off all those little high spots to straighten it. So you're not really going to lose almost anything, maybe an eighth.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, put our YouTube
Channel.
link up here so people can subscribe. And also our you got Chris's page, and then ours as well. And it's important to us. You know, if you like what we're doing, you like the information we're sharing, please do subscribe to us, because it helps push us up where we get more visible, we reach more people and pull more people into the lapidary arts.
Somebody asked there, how do you tell a new one from an old one? You know, there's a lot of guys that are out there actually trying to age them and make them look older. You know, there's some guys that are unscrupulous. We usually sign them with a diamond scribe in one of the flakes so that it's in the low spot of the flake. There's guys that can make them really look old and really try to fake out a lot of people. But I'll tell you, generally, there's ways. There's microscopic copper on it that if you put it underneath a microscope, you could see copper residue from my tool on there, or there's different ways. Sometimes it's just something as simple as it's not made out of the right material. One guy, you know, made it out of an agate from Brazil, but it's a American style. You know what I'm saying, or something like that. Or or another good one is the primitive man never heat treated that style ever. They just didn't do it. And then, but this guy today, he's heat treating it and making it. So there's a lot of giveaways.
Well, you know, the simplest way that I know of to tell an old piece from a current one is if you find the old piece yourself.
Yeah, that's one way. It's a pretty good way of assuring it.
I'll tell you one story, and then unfortunately I have to jump off. But I was in Utah, and we were out with a couple of my buddies, and we were looking for wood. And we're way out in the middle. We're a little north of Lake Powell, and we go way down in these. They're like little valley things in there, you know, like. And we're on ATVs, and it was like real tricky getting down into them. But we're walking around down there just looking, because sometimes the logs will just stick out of the side, and you have to walk around, and you might see just a little bit of log sticking out, and then you start digging. And we were walking around down there, and all of a sudden I hear my buddy scream, and he sounded like he's screaming like a girl. And I thought, oh man, I hope nobody got bit by a snake or something. And I go over, and he's not moving. He's like yelling at me to come here, come here, come here. And he had been walking along the side of the hill. And when you walk, it's a lot of clay in there. And so it kind of slides down on the top of your shoes. And he wouldn't move. And I walk around him, and he's standing there, and there's a perfect, complete point that's made out of petrified wood laying on the top of his shoe. It slid out of the hillside, laid right on his shoe.
I'll be darned. That's cool as heck.
That was a very cool find.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, listen, hey, I want to thank everybody that's on the call with us, and that you guys keep coming back. And I hope for you guys that we're producing value. I really want to appreciate the time that Chris put into this, because he's making all the videos for you guys to bring this content and take his time to teach you and show you. We really appreciate that. Chris is a great guy here. If you want to do some napping, buy some slabs from him. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer questions as you are starting your journey or continuing your journey in napping. and see whether we get more people into it.
Thank you so much, John, and thanks for the opportunity to do this.
We love doing it.
This has been a great time for me. And I love it. I love helping everybody with Highland Park, and just been a lot of fun. So thank you again. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, you guys. I'm going to sign off here.
Talk to you soon.
Wow, that's another interactive and informative session. Thank you again, Chris, for sharing your expertise in flint knapping. And guys, if this is valuable to all of you, give us a good review in Google. 5-star review. It will really help us a lot. And we are very committed to continue this avenue where we share education and information with everyone in the lapidary art. That being said, thank you so much again for your time tonight. And we will see you next week. Have a good night.